Cubelic, SEC Network, ESPN, joins us, and we appreciate his time on a day when, of course, the story involving Mike Leach, but also we're going to get into Auburn football with Philip Montgomery, Ron Roberts added to Hugh Freeze's staff. Cole, thank you for your time with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Your thoughts, Mike Leach? Do you have a favorite Mike Leach story?
Oh, yeah, easy. And I've interviewed him a couple of times, and I have a lot of different things that I like about him. But a couple of years ago, we were at the indoor facility at practice and had to do like a little live to tape interview that we were going to use the next day. And asked him a couple of football questions, and then as it usually goes, go in a different direction. And I just, I said, hey, I got to try to get something, that's going to be fun. Try to get something that's going to be, that he's going to give us a good answer for. And I showed him a picture of my son's Halloween costume that he had dressed up in. And he had dressed up as a pirate. My wife got him a really cool kind of pirate outfit. And, he basically just talked about how cool it was, how much he liked it, and talked about, how lucky my son was, and talked about all the different things that made it a cool outfit and the sword and everything. And, we kind of used that in our game. And then on about Wednesday of that week, we got a package at our house, and it was from Leach, and it was like a Mississippi State hoodie and a T-shirt and some other like little stickers and stuff, Mississippi State stuff that he actually sent to my son just because he liked his outfit so much. So, and that was just out of nowhere. Don't even know how he got our address or anything. Just kind of pretty cool that he decided to do that. So that by far, I've had some wild interviews with him, but that one sticks out more than any other.
Cole, when you look at people who have influence on college football, not 1 year competing in the Big 12 for the conference title. He has wins, that's for sure, but he was not competing for natties or anything like that. But his influence schematically and the way that he's changed how everybody at both sides of the ball have to approach a game, I think is maybe as big as anybody who's ever impacted the game in that way. What do you think?
He's up there. And when you just look at the tree of influence that he's had, guys that he's coached with, guys that play for him, like Chris Hatcher's the head coach here at Stanford. They just lost to North Dakota State in the FCS playoffs. He won the Harlan Hill Trophy for Leach. Playing at Valdosta State, he and Mummy were his head coach and offensive coordinator. Obviously, when you think about the different guys like Sonny Dykes and Lincoln Riley and Neil Brown at West Virginia, the list just seems to go on of different guys that he's had influence over and what he's done. And just kind of force defenses to have to play a different way, force people to look at the route tree a different way, play calling a different way. And he still holds on to being very unique with what he does and how he does it. And I think that's one thing that makes it pretty cool as far as just kind of what he's done over time. His offense was a little bit more different this year than in the last few. Some of the formations, the motions that he utilized, also some of the run game, how they went to that a little bit more. So he was even morphing a little bit. It takes him a little longer than some other folks, but the people who, and I think the craziest part about it is he's told me a couple of times that he doesn't even think that he is air raid certified, which I guess Mummy has a class that he teaches or something, and he'll send you like an actual air raid certificate. But he always joked that he wasn't even sure he was actually, certified, even though he is kind of the godfather of the air raid right now.
Cole, elsewhere in the SEC in much less serious matters, but serious news for Auburn fans who wanted to see how the staff would start to shake out under new head coach Hugh Freeze. A couple of coordinator hires, and we know them very well, both of them. Philip Montgomery, a former OC here at Baylor, and Tulsa head coach, looking like the OC, and then Ron Roberts, who was just here up until a couple of weeks ago as DC under Dave Aranda. Your thoughts on those two moves by Hugh Freeze, what it signifies, and how it's being reacted to?
I think the reaction is kind of wait and see for a lot of Auburn fans. They're just, you guys probably understand it like I do. There's a lot of our fan base here in the Southeastern Conference that doesn't venture out very much. It doesn't really have an understanding of a lot of things outside of their school or outside the SEC. And, these are two names that, might not be overly familiar with a lot of folks in this area, but they should be. And the influence should be number one. You look at Ron Roberts, you look at Pete Golding, you look at Austin Armstrong, the D coordinator at Southern Miss. A lot of the guys that have worked for him have gone on to do bigger and better things. And then obviously Philip, his ties to, working with RG3, or if it's, the offensive coordinator sitting there at Oklahoma right now, or what he did at Tulsa. There's a lot of guys that they kind of all fall under that same umbrella. And I think the system will be similar to what Hugh has been running, but I think it'll still be a little bit different and unique enough to where it's not just going to be the exact same thing. And that could potentially, I think Hugh is leaning to where he doesn't want to call it, but he feels like he might have to. And I do think that this is a hire that could possibly make it a little bit easier for him to say, you know what, this is going to be Phillips' offense. I'm going to step away. I'm going to let him do it because it is just a little bit more different than what he's done. Therefore, he'll allow him to go do it his way, and he can still have influence and have discussions, and you'll have input on game planning and adjustments in game, things of that nature.
Well, look, Cole, it's different times now in college football. The head coach being the play caller is kind of a tough thing to do. You don't want to go the way of Jimbo Fisher if you can help it. And I would think that Hugh Freeze not wanting to maybe micromanage too much, Monty allows him to do that.
You would think, and he mentioned in this opening press conference that this is something he's thinking about. But, guys, it's odd because I can see both sides of it. And I can see what you just said about the time. You got media. You've got, speaking engagements. You've got to go for alumni. You got to go see boosters. Now you have all the NIL stuff that you got to go do and be a part of. I mean, you're pulled in a lot of different directions constantly. On the flip side of that, though, and this is where I used to always lean with Gus Malzahn when he was at Auburn, like you were brought in and you got to where you were because of your ability to call plays. And, I think Billy Napier probably thinks that way. I think Jimbo probably thinks that way. I think Eli Drinkwitz thinks that way. I think a lot of these guys that still call their own plays, they probably sit back and say, this is why I'm here. So why would I move on from that? Then you've had some other guys like Lane Kiffin that have said, okay, I'll let Kendall Briles call it at FAU. I'll let Jeff Levy call it at Ole Miss. I'll let Charlie Weiss Jr. call it at Ole Miss. And they kind of let that happen, similar to Saban and his defenses early on with Kirby Smart. He got to a point where, okay, I'm confident in him doing it. I can step away and he'll be fine. So, we've got some of those CEO type coaches with Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer, guys like that in the SEC right now. But then we have the ones that are still holding on to it. And I don't really see giving up anytime soon. Like Josh Heupel's a guy that with Golis moving on, he can just take it right back because it's his offense and he knows how to go run it and how to go call it. So it's a give and a take. And as an administrator, I would think it'd be a tough call because, hey, you brought them in because of how well they call plays and what they've done as a play caller, but you also want them to be able to run the entire program.
Cole, what are your thoughts on where they might look as far as the quarterback position goes? Obviously, the transfer portal got loaded up. I've been seeing, tweets are what they are, but, the Devin Leary mentions or any number of other guys. Is there anything in particular you're eyeing?
I'm interested, and I don't know the answer to this, of what kind of guy they want. How important is mobility? We saw what Hugh can do with a Malik Willis at Liberty, where he could afford to allow him a little bit more time to develop as a passer because of what he could do with his legs. And I think Hugh did a great job with Malik early on. We've had conversations about this of, how he had to reel some things in from a recognition standpoint and a read standpoint to get his athleticism on the field earlier. Man, if you could do something like that with Robbie Ashford and still utilize the wheels and the athleticism, that would give you a big advantage over a lot of teams. But you bring in a Devin Leary and all of a sudden you can dump everything in his lap and he can handle every coverage. He can handle every protection. He can handle all the routes and all the concepts because he's been around college football for so long. So I'm interested now too with Montgomery coming in. What does that do to what kind of guy they want? What skill set do they put at the top of their wish list, so to speak? And that's what I just do not know the answer to right now.
Yeah, the guys that he had at Baylor, RG3
to Bryce Petty. He had a
Bryce
mixture.
Petty.
Yeah.
And back then, Cole, there was no transfer portal unless you were a grad assistant, and they had quarterbacks that waited 3 years. Petty waited 4 to play in that system, and Montgomery Briles got a lot of the credit because it was his offense, but boy, Philip Montgomery had a huge impact on it too.
Absolutely, and one of the things is you bring up some interesting names from a mobility standpoint. Because I can remember when Jarrett Stidham was transferring to Auburn, I went back and studied his film. I wanted to see what he had, what he was about. Nobody would label Jarrett as a dual threat quarterback, but there were so many times in which defenses were just giving them the run where he could just pull it and go steal 6 or 7 yards or even 4 or 5 yards. Like, you've got to take that. So even those guys like Petty and Stidham that we definitely wouldn't put anywhere near RG3's category as far as mobility, but still could just have the awareness and a little bit of athleticism to say, all right, if you're just going to give this to us, we're going to take it. We have to. And all of a sudden it's 2nd and 4, all of a sudden it's 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 8. So that can make a big difference. And, that's just another piece of what I think they're going to be able to add.
Oh, heck, Nick Florence even had a 77-yard run one time in that offense, and I don't think
took a little longer.
Yeah, it took a little longer, but it was there for him. Cole, I mentioned Jimbo Fisher a second ago. What should he do to right the ship at A&M?
Well, I think he has options, first and foremost. If you go watch the Alabama game this year, and if you watch the LSU game, those are the things that need to happen will show up, and they'll present themselves in those plans. More motion, more formations, more guys, getting into different things that are going to give you a matchup. Going from one formation to another, shifts and trades, things of that nature. Instead of just lining up in, a 2-by-2 set, which is two receivers on each side, so pretty much an even look, and then just running plays. Now, a lot of that was based on the youth that Jimbo had this year, and that kind of held him back. That limited things with what he was able to do. I've had that conversation with him. But if he could get someone in that brought a little bit of innovation and brought a little more creativity, I don't think he has to just give it up, but that he would trust enough to be able to add that and that he would allow to implement some of that moving forward. But I think that whatever that is, I think that understanding needs to take place early on. There can't be a Gus Malzahn at Auburn with Rhett Lashley and Chip Lindsey situation where it's going back and forth, or, a Kenny Dillingham where it's like, okay, you're going to call the plays and then 2 series in, like I'm taking it back. Like that I think needs to be established first and foremost with whoever he brings in. Like I was looking at what Deion did, and I've told people for a while that move's going to become, we had this with Dan Enos a couple of years ago where, he got hired, went to Arkansas and then went to Alabama, where he was in a group of 5 head coach that could basically just double, triple his salary and go be an offensive coordinator somewhere. And I thought what Deion did with Sean Lewis was brilliant because he's a great dude. He's fun. He's energetic. He'll be great in the facility, but he's also a brilliant offensive mind. And he'll probably make, double what he was or close to double what he was and only have to worry about offense being a head coach in the MAC. So I think you even have options on the table like that where you could go get someone and say, hey, we're going to pay you 1.6, 1.7 because A&M can do that. And instead of the 700 or 800 you're getting to be a coach in the MAC or CUSA or somewhere like that, come here, just worry about offense and more than double your pay. And here we go. So I think there's a lot on the table as far as options and how they're going to do it and what he can do. But whatever the role will be, I believe has to be clarified first and foremost. If it's an associate, if it's a guy just going to be able to give ideas or help with game planning, that needs to be laid down early on, or else it could become more problematic as the season or seasons progress.
So with all that being said, what was your reaction to the Bobby Petrino whispers or reports?
Well, I think he obviously knows offense and he's got some innovative ideas. I don't look at Bobby as bringing things in that are totally different than what Jimbo does. And that's the thing that I don't believe. Some people might, but I don't believe is that Jimbo just doesn't know offense or doesn't know how to call plays anymore. I think he almost handcuffed himself a little bit too much last year instead of just saying, we've got to put more on these guys. They've got to be able to go out and do these things to help us be successful. And I think he maybe reeled it in a little bit too much. He would probably tell you that after he self-scouts this offseason. But there are some things I think Petrino could add in the passing game, maybe from a route tree perspective, a quick game perspective that could help. But I don't view those minds as being different enough unless Jimbo just said, I'm going to let you take it and it's yours. If that was the plan, then okay, I could see that as being a win and being a positive. But if it was going to be just sort of somebody to come in, add some influence and spice things up a little bit, I would want to go with somebody that was a little bit of a different thinker and a little bit of more of a younger mind who had run different things than he has.
Cole, I know you talk to a lot of people around the sport. Just what's kind of the sentiment right now around all of the plates that are up in the air due to the weird timeline as far as signing day and the portal and the coaching changes and everything just kind of all coming together all at once this calendar year? Is it any more a sense of just, oh my gosh, how much more can we pile on? Or is it just kind of the new norm and everybody's adjusting to it as best they can?
It's a new norm, but everybody's just treading water. I think everybody is just trying to stay afloat right now and looking for a life raft or looking for an island. And because I think a lot of this is uncharted territory. There's not a lot of situations that guys are going to be able to say, oh, well, we did this last year, or we had this many needs a year ago, or we went and found this position this place. It's happened to an extent a little bit, but not year after year. So a lot of this is still extremely new, but it's mayhem right now. I mean, you guys follow, I'm sure, one of those portal accounts just like I do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's nonstop. And you got some schools now that are 15 plus guys in the portal. Just from a numbers perspective, even if it's not a Heisman Trophy candidate or a first round draft pick or a 3-year starter, you lose 5 offensive linemen, you lose 4 wide receivers, you lose 3 corners. All of a sudden that affects your practice. That affects your game planning. That affects obviously your depth. And, we talked to Coach Saban about it earlier in the year, and he's like, listen, I know you guys see that we lose a couple second team guys and you don't think it's a big deal, but when the new guys come in, or new guys who haven't been with us long have to go fill that void, they have to learn how to practice. They have to learn the verbiage. They have to learn the terminology. They have to learn the pace of practice, all the different fundamentals that they've got to learn. They've got to be ready as a 2 as opposed to a scout team guy or somebody who just got on campus. They got to be ready to go if somebody goes down. And that takes extra time that we have to spend with them. Well, that extra time we spend with them is taken away from our ones and the guys who are going to help and contribute right away to help go make us a championship caliber program. So there is a trickle down effect with all of this that I don't think we pay a lot of attention to. And that is just practice time, reps, fundamentals that you have to go learn and practice, terminology, verbiage, alignment, assignment, all those different things play into how much you're going to be able to do in a game and how good you're going to be at it when you run it in a game. And the more new faces that come in and the more old faces that go out, the more difficult that becomes.
Yeah, it is. And it's also leading up to National Signing Day. And if you're fortunate enough to be in a bowl game, it's hard to keep up with. Cole, thank you very much. As always, great stuff from you, Cole Cubelic from the SEC Network, ESPN, on Mike Leach in Auburn with Philip Montgomery, Ron Roberts. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
That's Cole Cubelic again with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, good stuff there from